What's up, everybody? I'm Metal Nick.
I'm Jeff Grindstoffer.
And welcome to episode number 64. My note said 63, but for some reason we're on 64. Episode 64 of Vinyl Bang. Today is today is Viewer's Choice number 10. And this was a tricky one, a very, very tricky one, because there was a lot of head scratchers. There was a giant list that was submitted once again by our good pal, Mr. Alex Cha. And there was a lot of things we had to pass on because one of us had it and the other one didn't. And it's tough trying to agree on some of these things because
because trying to coordinate everything. Like Shaw comes up with these really great ideas like all the time, and we just don't have the accommodating vinyl, or Nick will have something that I don't, or it's like we're putting too much thought into this one topic, so let's just move on. It's like we're extremely grateful for Shaw for giving us. We wouldn't have 10 episodes without him. But
yeah. What's up, buddy? Getting a little visit here from somebody. Yes, thank you, Cha. Again, these were some fun ones. Some of these were tough, I think, but let's not waste any time here. This first topic,
which is
shut up
funny.
and play.
The topic, shut up and play already.
Shut up and play already. Favorite record by a band known for their between song banter.
Yeah, this was pretty easy for me. Whenever we solidified this topic, I was like, dude, I'm gonna do Opeth, just because Michael Ackerfeld, he doesn't really talk a lot, but whenever he does, it's hilarious. Like Michael Ackerfeld is a very, very, very funny frontman. So, and I was trying to think about an album because, like, I've talked about Opeth a few times throughout the show. And I was trying to think of an album that I have not presented yet from Opeth, and I decided, without a doubt, to go with Still Life, because my God, what an album! Still Life is so fucking good. Arguably their best record. I've gone back and forth with a lot of friends of mine trying to figure out which album was my favorite Opeth album, and I would usually say Blackwater Park, which people would like scoff at, like, Blackwater Park. I mean, it's a good album, but Still Life, man, this is fucking so good. The songs like The More, Godhead's Lament, Benighted, Moonlapse, Vertigo, Face of Melinda, Serenity, Painted Death, and White Cluster. I mean, every track on this fucking album is amazing.
Serenity, Painted Death. That's a really good song. Really, really good song.
Yes.
Yeah.
Really
That's
good song. Cool. Really good band. This was a 2000. I don't even know what year this was released or reissued, but this is a reissue. This isn't like an OG or anything, but still cool to have. Love Opeth. I might actually give that a spin after the episode.
Is he known for his onstage banter? I don't know. I've only seen them twice. I saw them.
Every time I see Opeth, it's like that's all I'll listen to for a month, just because they're so. Michael is hilarious. He is absolutely hilarious when they're there. You see them live, so
yeah. I went with a little bit more. I don't know. I wouldn't say obvious unless you've gone and seen this band. Talking about Long Island's own Suffocation, the Human Waste EP. If you have an OG copy of this CD, in the credits they thank Chris from Abominog. It's the very last person they thank. So shout out to my buddy Chris. This is the merge with Splatter Edition, limited to 1,000, that Relapse put out a couple years ago. This was their. This wasn't their first thing. There was a demo before this, but this is really what like started it all for people. Then Pierce from Within, which should be like a must-have in everybody's death metal collection. This is
absolutely
coolest artwork. The songs Pierce from Within, Thrones of Blood, Depths of Depravity, Suspended by in Tribulation. I mean, like I can keep going. Breathing is Spawn, Brood of Hatred, Synthetically Revived, Invoking, Torn into Enthrallment. This was a fucking crazy album. I have the highlighter blue yellow edition that came from Listenable Records. I think we were just talking about that label last night with our previous guest. Um, oh, I'm doing a lousy job stuffing this back in. I'm sorry. And then Despise the Sun. These are the only three I have. This was a look at that cool pressing. Uh,
That's
Butterfly
cool.
with Splatter, limited to 900 copies. This was like a different alternate cover. But if you've ever seen Suffocation live, Frank Mullen, who is the OG vocalist of this band, is just has some of the funniest mid-stage banter. I had some friends many years ago used to say he sounds like Carl from Aqua Teen Hunger Force. I cannot unhear it ever since then. But I've heard him tell some of the funniest stories, and actually Adam Jarvis does a really good impression of him as well. But Frank Mullen from Suffocation, I've talked a lot of football with that guy over the years because he's a Dallas Cowboys fan, and they've suffered so bad. I haven't talked to him in the last few years, so I'm sure he's not doing well about it. But he was always very nice to me, and very funny guy. But his mid song banter is just I always thought it was hilarious. No longer with the band now. I believe what's the new gentleman's name who does vocals? He's on the newest album as well.
Ricky, God
Ricky
damn it, I can't think of his last name, but
from
yeah,
Disgorge. Yeah,
yes, yeah,
uh, that guy's fucking got some killer vocals. He's done an amazing job with them on the road and on this new record. I think I was with you when you got it in the mail a couple
yeah,
years ago. But shout out to Suffocation, just a great fucking band in general. But their OG vocalist Frank Mullen, in my opinion, had some of the best mid song banter on stage. I mean, it was great. Some
absolutely.
real funny shit. Uh, moving on. We Look Better in the Dark. Favorite glow in the dark record.
Favorite glow in the dark record. I decided to, before we even got from the previous episode, our last guest on the show. As soon as we solidified on this topic, I was like, I know exactly which one I'm going to. This is the very first glow in the dark record I ever got. This is a split album from two of St. Louis's finest. This is a split album between Fister and The Lion's Daughter. This album is called And Their Masters Bled for Days. This artwork was done by a local artist and a very good friend of everybody in St. Louis because he's such an awesome guy. This artwork was done by Kobe Ellison. This was very DIY. They self-released this. The two bands self-released this split. Track list inside. Fister had obsolete amps and intact guitars, Witchfucker and Santabeth, and art. To me, like this is the best material Lion's Daughter has ever done. Apathy Worm, Dead Earth, We Are Abomination, and The Horror of Existence. Which The Horror of Existence came out. It was the uh, title track for their debut album from Season of Mist. Existence is Horror. But yeah, and that was released at least a decade after this. This pressing was limited to 300, and I got number 81. Yeah, awesome artwork. But besides that, the actual vinyl itself, glow in the dark vinyl. And this is the first episode we've done in a while that was during the day. Otherwise, I would like turn the lights off so you could actually see that it's glow in the dark. But yeah, very first glow in the dark record. Very cool thing to have from some great bands, great friends. Yeah, and their masters bled for days. I love that title too. I love that title. Yeah,
Oh yeah, shout out to Kenny from Pister.
great guy.
And yeah, you don't need to turn the lights on. We can tell if it's glow in the dark or not. Whoop, movement going on behind me here. It's not for you. Okay, cool stuff. My glow in the dark for this episode, for this topic, I'm gonna go with the awesome Bay Area thrash band, I should say. Ghoul. Are they from the Bay Area? I think they are. This is Dungeon Bastards. This was actually, when you look, the the gatefold turns into a board game.
Oh, that's
Um,
fun.
there's actually like rules for it right here on the side. Um, Ghoul, and on the back there's a picture of them playing the game with a bunch of little kids. And just how
That's
fucking great
awesome.
is it? I know. These guys really rule. But this was a limited glow in the dark vinyl. You can see, I believe Tank Crimes put this out. Am I right? Yes, Tank Crimes 2016. Um, this is one of many glow in the darks that I have in my collection. But I thought to myself, I've never talked about Ghoul on our show. Um, or maybe I have. I think I've talked about them when I do the test pressings. Maybe I have
I,
a
I, I
I have a
this,
it, it is split with Cannabis Corpse
that's
called
what it was. Yeah, you did the split with Cannabis Corpse.
Splatter Hash, and Ghoul has an album called Splatter Thrash, and obviously Cannabis Corpse likes to smoke hash. Uh, but yeah, Ghoul Dungeon Bastards. This is a cool, very awesome album. Every time Ghoul puts stuff out, it's always like really neatly pressed, and they have amazing ideas because Scotty from Tank Rhymes, shout out to Scotty, just has the best ideas when it comes to pressing things and alternate packaging and all that. This is this is a cool fucking record. I don't own every Ghoul album. I would like to own Maniacs and some of the earlier ones because those have some cool fucking songs there that I like. But
Hmm.
yeah, as far as Glow in the Dark, this is the one I wanted to choose because I don't think I've ever talked exclusively about Ghoul on our show. They're a great band. They've turned into kind of like a stage production band like War, where they have like the live stuff going, the live stage theatrical stuff going on at the same time. And
Right.
for many years, it was just them with the bags on their head performing, and it's evolved a lot. And I'm happy for them because I like this band a lot. I like the other project that these guys do called Impaled, but yeah, Ghoul.
Fuck yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, hell yeah. I'm stoked to have that. That's a neat piece that I didn't talk about. I got to think. I have a lot of 7 inches that are glow in the dark. I think I don't know why bands just want to save their money and press those, but
Hmm.
all right, moving on. Praise be. Favorite Christian metal band?
Christian heavy metal. My choice for this episode has actually been on the opposite sides of the screen by my co-host early on in the show. I went with Norma Jean because it's pretty much the only option I have. So, but this is, of course, their amazing album, "Bless the Martyr" and "Kiss the Child," as shown before by Nick. Whenever he had this exact copy, because I got this from him after that episode was over, or a couple episodes later. I think we were talking about doing a trade. I don't remember what we tried. I think it was that the Nirvana and Metallica
Oh
albums I
yeah,
traded.
that's correct.
I think, but yeah,
And
the two
shout out to
different.
Josh Huddleston for selling me his copy.
Yeah, yeah, really, really kept it within the within the circle. But yeah, awesome album. I am stoked to have this. I'm glad that Nick was willing to come off of it so that I could actually have this. Um, because whenever he brought it on the show, I was just like, "Fuck, I want that album on vinyl so bad."
It's a
But
cool record.
absolutely,
Very cool record.
yeah, awesome album. But yeah,
For the
like I
record,
said, I mean, this like I didn't really have a whole lot of options for Christian metal. Like whenever I even went through Wikipedia and started looking through these bands, I'm like, I got nothing.
and for the record, folks, I tried convincing Jeff to break out his Creed album, but he refused to show that on air.
Show's over. Good seeing everybody. We'll go ahead and turn this off. I'm not talking about the Creed. Creed stays on the shelf collecting dust.
Um, yeah, no, I didn't even know one of the bands you were bringing up. There's a couple that I know that are Christian metal, and I don't even know what classifies these bands. But the band that I'm going to talk about, I didn't even know about it till a couple years later, and I guess I realized once I started to look around and see that a lot of these bands that were on the record label, Tooth and Nail. and Solid State. Those were bands that were primarily Christian hardcore metal, whatever you want to call. In the year 2000, I started working at Tower Records, and these guys that worked there, they were in a death metal band called Tortured with Trey Williams, who's now in Dying Fetus. But Eric and Nurses, they would always Eric was a singer, and Nurses was a guitarist. They would always try to play stuff for me when I started working there, just to like get me into heavier shit. Because at the time I was fully indulged into new metal. And one of the first things they played for me was a band called Zayao. This is Where Blood and Fire Bring Rest. This is one of those albums that I absolutely had to own on vinyl. I didn't get it till maybe I think last year. I finally was able to purchase this because there's quite a few pressings and it's very, very pricey. If you've ever listened to this band or listened to this album in particular, you know why. This is a really good one. Lies of Serpents, A River of Tears. To Think of You is To Treasure an Absent Memory. A Fall, Farewell, March, Ember, Ravage, Ritual, 15 Remove. This album is so fucking good. Like, this is one of the first things I listened to. I was just blown away by it. I was like, I have to buy this. And like, they didn't have it on the shelves at Tower when I first heard it. I remember going home and downloading a lot of these songs on Napster, unfortunately. But like, hey, I made up for it. I bought it on vinyl all these years later. I actually bought it on CD quite a few times. But this is such a good fucking record. Again, I don't know what classifies these guys to be a Christian metal band. I've seen them live. I've hung out with them a couple times. They're nice dudes. Um, I guess they don't use the word "God damn it" as often as other people would, but this is a great fucking band. They put out many albums over the years. I think they're still putting out stuff. I have to assume that this, if their fan base is out there watching or listening, this people would probably think this is their best album. If I had to assume, I don't know any better, but this was my favorite one. This is the first one I ever heard. Artwork's fucking incredible. This band is just they're amazing. I have this orange pressing. Um,
Nice.
I'm not gonna lie, it was not cheap. I paid a pretty penny for this on off of Discogs, but this is I guess when I think about Christian hardcore or metal or whatever, I don't think bands like Striper or Creed really. I do think about Zao because they do pop in my mind first after before Norma Jean especially and Under Oath, and I'm just listing bands that I've listened to, but this album in particular was a great one. If you've never heard it before, I strongly recommend it. I think at the end of the very first track, they sample that sound of I can't remember the kid's name from The Shining, where he's riding the big wheels through there's like a seat where it's part where he's like riding over the carpet and he's riding on the hard floor, and it's like the noise of him riding over the hard floor. They sampled that at the end of the first song, and like I remember
Hmm.
the first time hearing it, I'm like, oh, this sounds so familiar. What is this? And the next time I watched The Shining, I was like, oh my god, that's great. Like it's it's just the noise that it's making, and it's very eerie sounding, but it fit well with this song. And
Hmm.
check this album out. I'm sure it's on Spotify. It has to be.
Hmm.
Uh,
I is Thou like I know the band. I know I've listened to something from them, but it wasn't enough. It didn't have enough staying power to stay with me. Like I
Zao, Zao, Zao.
right. Did
Yeah,
I mispronounce it?
I thought I heard you say.
Zao,
I heard you say
Zao,
Thou, Thou,
Zao.
Zao, Zao. It's all pronounced in however you want. I guess I don't
Hmm.
know. All right, moving on. Grindstopher knows karate.
That's the name of the topic, by the way. I don't actually know karate.
I was just saying random stuff out loud.
Yeah.
Uh, Favorite record by a band that Mike Patton has publicly talked shit about.
Yeah, and Chaw's so cute. Like I don't know where Mino and karate came into this, but Patton has been pretty vocal about his disdain for other bands, and whenever whenever Chaw gives us topics, he gives us like for examples, like for everyone. He's like, bands that sell air guitar strings. Example, Kiss and only Kiss because they're the only bands that's ever done that. But whenever he gave us a list of bands. Foo Fighters was included in this, and I was like, of course, Patton's talk shit about Foo Fighters because he's Mike Patton. But anyway, so yeah, my topic, my album is Foo Fighters. I went with One by One. Um, just because I've never talked about One by One on the show. I think I know I've talked about Color and the Shape, and I guess I do have their self-titled. Anyway, yeah, for this topic, Grindsford knows karate, kind of to an extent. Grindsford knows how to run away quickly before getting into a karate scenario. Foo Fighters One by One, and this is just a standard black. There's nothing special about it. But I mean, the album itself is great. I mean, All My Life, Times Like These, Tired of You, Overdrive. It's a good album. It really is, as far as Foo Fighters is concerned. And I know my co-host is not a fan of the band, which is fine. Which is fine. It's okay. But yeah, I dig this album a lot. Whenever I find it on vinyl, at Stick It in Your Ear, which is a record store in Springfield, Missouri. Crazy that we brought up Springfield, Missouri two episodes in a row. But yeah, Fighters One by One, great album. Mike Patton is not a fan. I ain't mad at him. It's all right, you know.
You know, I was a big fan of Dave Grohl, the Adulterer, and then I heard his music and I had to unfollow him. What did Patton say about him? I never heard.
I don't know. I didn't even look it up.
Yeah,
He said they're not me. I guess I don't know. I don't know.
I like their first album and a couple songs off of The Color and Shape, but I felt like The Color and Shape put him in a whole new, different stratosphere. Like I felt like at that point he was he wasn't Nirvana big, but he was pretty fucking big. They were a giant rock band
Mm-hmm.
by the time The Color and the Shape came out, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, like they were everywhere. They did a lot of publicity on MTV. They played a lot of music festivals around the world. Dave Grohl turned into a household name, basically, and
Right.
they were just, you know, I think by the time that one, the whatever one that had like the tattoo on the back of the neck, I remember working at Tower Records when that came out, and like I had lost track of Foo Fighters at that point. I wasn't keeping up with them anymore, but
Right. Right.
you know, it is what it
Well,
is.
kind of a glaring difference between the first and, for those of you at home who care about the Foo Fighters, the first album was all Dave. It was all Grohl. He did everything: drums, bass, vocals, guitar, everything. And then The Color and the Shape was, whenever he actually had an actual band in the studio with him. So
Yeah.
a little difference.
All right. Well, mine is a very obvious pick because I don't have too many albums of bands that I know that he has talked shit about. Red Hot Chili Peppers. I mean, Jesus Christ, I don't know so much. I do know that when Californication came out, what, a few weeks later or the same day, Mr. Bungle put out an album called California.
Mm-hmm.
There's just so much. They did a whole show dressed up like the Chili Peppers. I think Anthony Kiedis was threatened because he think Mike Patton's look was too much like his and his stage persona. But like I'm not really. I don't have a horse in this race, but I'll go ahead and tell you that I think Mike Patton's a way better vocal range than Anthony Kiedis any day of the motherfucking week. That's no doubt. Just because this guy goes up there and bleep blop 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 and gets away with it, you know, that's fine. But I did like this album, One Hot Minute. This is the only album they did with Dave Navarro on guitar. Dave Navarro is famously known for being the douchebag on Ink Master. No, not really. He was in Jane's Addiction. He got punched in the face by his singer, by his vocalist Perry Farrell on stage. I actually like this album a lot. I like Dave Navarro's riffs on this album. I liked it a lot better than Jane's Addiction. I'll say that. After this, I wasn't so much a fan of what Red Hot Chili Peppers did, but this was a cool record. I liked it, whether Mike Patton was a fan of it or not. Sorry, Mike. Please still do our show. But this was a cool album. This is also produced by Rick Rubin. This I feel like this album was this came out when everybody was trying to be very alternative, and I don't want to say they were being alternative. They were not. They did Red Hot Chili Peppers stuff like the song Airplane on here, Warped, My Friends. I mean, these are some of these are like ballads again, you know, like under the bridge poems like type songs. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why it was so why the audience didn't like it as much as their other stuff because like I think this is better than Californication or the Stadium Arcadium stuff. Like, it's all perception, and I'm not a big Chili Peppers fan, but I remember being a freshman in high school, and I think my sister got this for me for Christmas that year, and yeah, that's my pick. It's a very obvious one. I know Anthony Kiedis is threatened by Mike Patton, and obviously so. The guy's a better vocalist. Gesundheit to your wife in the background. Um, yeah,
Yeah,
that's I,
yeah.
I I really don't have too much in my collection. And did you ever talk shit about Slipknot? I have that first Slipknot album. I've seen that video of him like running his mouth about Stone Sour when they were
Stone
at Rock.
Sour. Yeah, I was gonna say Stone Sour. Wolf Mother. That clip was a big thing. Whenever he was
I don't.
like,
That's a
"Who is
very
Wolf Mother? You suck." That whole thing. But
people give him shit because he's like, "What year is this?" And he was just talking about writing like a '70s like orchestral like moments before that. So I'm like, that's funny that he does that. But Wolf Mother is like pretty. I don't know. They were bad. They weren't a good band. I don't know if they're still around or not. But anyways,
yeah,
all right. On to topic number 5, and I almost went with my generic pick for this one, but on second thought, favorite record that that you hated the first time you listened to it, but after the second listen, you loved it.
yeah. This one took a little bit of thought to because I was like, what the hell do I have that I didn't like at first, but then I listened to it years later or whatever and fell in love with it. Like it's usually the other way around. It's like I've had a few albums that like I liked whenever they came out, and then I went back and listened to it, 10, 20, whatever years later, and it's like, God, this is bad. Like I don't think I have anything that's the opposite. But then I looked at the skateboard hanging on the wall behind me, and I'm like, oh yeah, Nine Inch Nails. Like I really fell out of Nine Inch Nails after the Downward Spiral. Whenever they put out the Fragile, because when it came out, the preview song, the songs that were the singles from that album, like "We're in This Together Now" and "The Hand That Feeds." I'm like, this isn't anything like the Downward Spiral at all. And so I didn't really give the Fragile a chance, and I definitely did not give their album after that, With Teeth, a chance. And a couple of years ago, I went back and like started re-exploring the Nine Inch Nails that I've neglected over the years, everything that came after the Downward Spiral, and my God, what an album! Nine Inch Nails with Teeth is arguably one of their best. Arguably one of their best fucking records. Um, 20 years after the 20, 30 years after the fact, after I had given up on Nine Inch Nails, and I went back and gave another listen, not expecting not everything to be dark and depressing and melancholy as the Downward Spiral. The songs on here, like "Every Day Is Exactly the Same," beautiful song, absolutely beautiful song. And then you got your rippers like "Don't You Know What You Are" is just one of the heaviest fucking songs Nine Inch Nails has ever written. Phenomenal album, absolutely phenomenal album, and I'm glad I went back and started exploring the albums from them that I've neglected. There's a couple of them that are still like hit and miss with me. The Fragile, I definitely went back and gave that a second, third, 25th listen, and the Fragile's an amazing album. Now that I'm not a 14-year-old kid anymore, and I didn't expect everything to be the Downward Spiral over and over and over and over and over. Great album. With Teeth is a great album. But yeah, this is my, on second thought, absolute banger of a fucking album. Nine Inch Nails with Teeth, phenomenal band. Can't wait. I'm seeing them twice this year. I'm excited going to.
And thousands of dollars to see them. Jesus, Chow and I were looking at those tickets the other day, and just like, fuck that.
Oh, got them the day they went on sale. I got them for like $100 a piece for both shows. Wasn't bad.
Hmm.
Definitely worth it. And Melanie won't go with me to see them anymore, so I don't have to buy two tickets. So,
Nice. Hmm. All right. So my pick, I was going to go with Between the Buried and Me but I think I've talked about that with Colors quite often on this show, and I wanted to try to not talk about the same album as much, although I'm about to do that in the next pick. So this one, back in 2012, I'm gonna shout out my buddy Brandon. He's my go-to hip hop guy. For many years, he's always recommended good stuff for me and really good stuff. I remember it was maybe 2012. We were hanging out at his house watching football, and I'd asked him what's new that's good that I haven't heard yet. And he told me about Kendrick Lamar's "Good Kid, Mad City." And I at first, I remember he put it on my iPod, and I went home and listened to it. And this is my first introduction to like modern hip hop. I would say like anything that came out after the year 2010. I would say I hadn't listened to anything new. And so like all the effects I wouldn't say he had effects on his voice, but there's just like he was very young on this album. There was moments where it didn't sound good to me. I hated it, and I remember telling him I was like, "Man, does he like special needs or something? Like, what's wrong with his voice?" And he laughed. He said, "You should really go back and listen to it. Like this kid's no joke." It wasn't. I remember a few years later. Uh, what was it called? To Pimp a Butterfly came out, and I heard that, and that changed my perspective on it. That was a completely different album. And that album was very R&B heavy, but I love that album. Then I went back and listened to this, and then I started thinking, man, am I special needs? Like, what is wrong with me? This album is incredible. This is a really good fucking record. Like, I don't know maybe I just wasn't used to like different like I don't want to say adaptations of his voice. Like he changes it up a lot on the album. But the first time I heard it, I just was like, this dude sounds whack, and I was so fucking wrong. When I went back, now when I listen to this album, I don't skip a track. It's so good. There's like a story being told between tracks. Let's see here. I'm gonna "Bitch Don't Kill My Vibe." That's probably like the one that like hits it off for real. Backstreet Freestyle is pretty cool. Money Trees, I love that one. Poetic Justice featuring Drake. Can you believe that? I don't think they ever like hung out in the studio with each other. I'm sure this was all done like email me your track when you're done type of stuff. Swimming Pools, that's a really cool song. Good Kid, Mad City. This whole album is so fucking good. There's a song on there called Compton with Dre. Dr. Dre discovered him. This wasn't his first album, but this was like his first like major release into like stores and all that. Um, this is really cool. Standard Black as well. Uh, but I think it's been released a couple times with alternate covers and different color pressings. But I would say, as far as like man, like I was so wrong about this, and I'm a big fan of everything he's put out. I have everything except for there's like an untitled EP he put out a couple years ago. I don't own that on vinyl, but all of his full length studio albums I do own on vinyl. I for many years I had a bootleg of Good Kid, Mad or To Pimp a Butterfly, but I couldn't live with having that. It was terrible. It was the guy who sold it to me poorly packaged it, and I eventually I don't remember. I think I flipped it at a record store because there's no I couldn't you can't sell bootlegs on Discogs. But when I saw it was officially released, I bought it, and the version that I have back there comes with Braille in the middle. It's pretty neat. That Kendrick Lamar, he's a good guy. Like I was very wrong about him, and like I said, the second full length was really what did it for me. But that when I went back and listened to this first one, that it's not his first one. I keep saying that. When I went back to listen to Good Kid, Mad City, I felt like a fool. I was like, man, this is so good. I think I just made a bad judgment call in the beginning, and just as I listened to it, I was like, oh. But when I go back, yeah, some really really good beats, some really good songs, and like I said, there's a story being told throughout the album between tracks, like little interludes.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
The comment about the track with Drake. I mean, do they not hang out? Do they not get along? I mean, I don't
No,
understand.
he's got this big beef with him. I mean, that whole song that he performed at the Super. So they had a beef, and then Drake made a diss track, and then Kendrick made a better diss track. And I think like in Kendrick's diss track, he calls Drake a pedophile, and
Yeah, yeah.
all this. I think I struck a chord, and it's probably A
Yeah,
minor.
minor. Yeah.
So all that stuff, and then Drake sued him over that. That's like I guess for like defamation of character or whatever, and
Mm.
that's a pretty big bitch move if you ask me. Like, so when it was announced months ago that he was doing the Super Bowl, everybody's like, I wonder if he's going to do that song. No, he's not going to do that song. He'll get him and the NFL will get sued by Drake. I'm sorry, Drake, you're not bigger than the NFL, but he performed it. He looked right in the camera and said, "Say Drake," and he had this big smile on his face, and that's that clip of him walking all sideways and shit. So like, it was that very moment where like shit got loose, shit went wild on at the Super Bowl. But yeah, I mean, he wrote this pretty harsh diss track about him, and then he had his ex girlfriend out there crip dancing, and I think that's it's a pretty harsh beef there to have with somebody. But I hope I would never have beef with Kendrick. I'd love to meet him. I really would. I have a lot of questions about the musicians that recorded on To Pimp a Butterfly. I know Bumblefoot played bass on the first track. It's pretty cool. Or yeah, the very first track. But again, like I was horribly mistaken about him, and I think there was a period where a lot of people were saying on the internet calling stuff mumble rap, and
Hmm.
and he is not one of them. He's not. He really he he can enunciate all of his words very well. It, it's you've got to be a moron to not get what he's saying, and I really do. I really am into his stuff. Is that album? Damn, was really good. That album like struck a chord with me because there's a couple songs in there that mean something to me. So
Hmm.
yeah, happy to have his discography in my collection.
Very cool.
Yeah. Okay. So OG DJ, a favorite band by wait a minute, a favorite record by a band you discovered on the FM radio. Name the station. Did you ever call in? And you ever won a contest?
Yeah, this one seriously took me a while. Like we came up with these topics, I think, last week, and for the last 6 or 7 days, I was like, "What the fuck album did I find on the radio in 1994 on FM radio?" I think I have a good one. I mean, I definitely learned about this band by hearing them on the radio, not MTV, nothing like that, because that was what a lot of them was. A lot of bands that discovered back in the early '90s was on MTV, and it was just like so many of these are blaringly like like you found this on MTV, you found this on MTV. This was not broadcasted anywhere else. Um, back before the internet, back before you had as soon as two people were seen in a coffee shop together, oh, this is a new band now. Like you didn't have that. So the album that I picked for this particular topic from a band that I discovered in 1994, and I am not going into all the radio station and what all that because I really don't remember. I really don't know. I never called in requested songs. I never did any of that stuff. But my pick for an album discovered via the radio, FM radio in 1994, Mad Season, Mad Season Above. The I know for a fact that the only way I found out about this was by either a station out of St. Louis, which I'm sure was KSHE or something, KSHE 95. I would almost guarantee that was how I learned about Mad Season. But above, phenomenal album, absolutely phenomenal album. That was released in 1995. Sorry, not 1994. 1995, the early 90s. Learned about this band via the radio in the early 90s. Um, Again, phenomenal album. Songs like Wake Up, River of Deceit, Artificial Red. Fucking Artificial Red, dude. So good. Lifeless Dead, Long Gone Day is probably my favorite track on the album. Arguably. I mean, it kind of, goes back and forth between different tracks or whatever, but Long Gone Day is beautiful song. Beautiful song. Um, yeah, Mad Season, their one and only album above.
Oh yeah. Um, right on. Okay. Well, I've talked about this album quite a few times, but this is like the real one that really comes to mind when I think about it. Um, uh, WHFS in Washington D.C. used to have a show called Loveline, and my friend Randy would tell me to listen to it because he would tell me about these hilarious stories that were on it. And the one time I checked it out, they had this band called the Bloodhound Gang on there, and they were just promoting this
Mm-hmm.
brand new album that they're about to put out called One Fierce Spirit Coaster, and they kept playing clips from the song Fire, Water, Burn, and that was the first hit off of this album. And then I bought this. I'm showing off this one that I've shown you guys many times. Clear yellow. Kiss Me Where It Smells Funny. Lift Your Head Up High and Blow Your Brains Out. Fire, Water, Burn. I Wish I Were Queer so I Could Get Chicks. Why is everybody always picking on me? It's tricky. Asleep at the Wheel. Shut Up. Your Friends Are Make Believe. Boom. Featuring Rob Van Winkle, also known as Vanilla Ice.
Mm-hmm.
Going Nowhere Slow and Reflections of Ramoa. If you spell Ramoa backwards, it's Homer, and it's one of them doing a really poor Homer Simpson impression. I used to call into HFS all the time trying to win tickets to the HF Festival. I was never usually very successful at that, but I did. WHFS is no longer a station. Sometime in like I think 2004, it went away. It just disappeared and it turned into like a Spanish radio station. A lot of people in the area were upset. Um, then DC 101, is a very famous radio station out of Washington D.C., mostly because Howard Stern started there in the 80s. But I used to work for Comcast and drive around in a van all day and listen to their radio station. And they used to do this contest at noon. There's a radio DJ named Danielle Flynn, and she would do these. She would play these three songs in a row, and you'd have to make the connection between the three songs. The first song she played was the Soundgarden song. The second song she played was Temple of Dog. So I knew where she was going with this. So I called in the middle of the second song. She's like, "Well, the songs aren't even over yet." I'm like, "Oh, let me guess. The next one's gonna be Audio Slave." Like, I'm not a dummy here. We know where you're going with this. So I won tickets to free VIP passes to a Shamrock Fest in Washington D.C. at the old RFK Stadium where the Washington Redskins used to play. And I took my friend Adam, and we got super fucking drunk. We were drinking a lot of we had free beer the whole day. They had like green beer they were giving us, but yeah, I got some crazy stories that I shouldn't be telling on this show about that day. But that was back in my drinking days. Yes, I did win shit off the radio. Bloodhound Gang, found them on the radio. Love this band. I don't want to talk too much about it because I've talked about that album quite a few times, and I know it makes my co-host very jealous. And
Extremely jealous. I'm so mad that you have that.
man, you should have been in line first. I don't
I mean,
know.
I'm not mad. I'm not mad. I'm glad that you have it, but man, jealous every time you bring that up. And dude, the way that I found them was, of course, the video for Fire, Water, Burn right at the beginning. It had Jimmy Pop Ali. He was Pat Minfield, like he was imitating Matt Pinfield. You know, he had a bald thing, and he was talking about this guy did this, and this guy did that, and then his neighbor's brother's cousin did this, and it was just like,
I don't remember that. That's hilarious.
yeah, Pat
No, that band,
Minfield.
they're fucking hilarious. Those guys are really funny. When I saw them in '97 at 930 Club, we met the drummer Spanky G in the basement, and then Jimmy Pop and Evil Jared were on stage with the support band called Nerf Herder, and then he like walked right up to me when he was done. Like I got just, I wish I still had it. I had him and Spanky G sign something for me, but yeah, it was a big deal for me. It was a huge experience, good concert going experience for me as a young kid. So, all right, final topic. Ran out of lyrics. Favorite instrumental song by a band that normally has vocals.
Yeah, this one I kind of owe to my co-host because I was initially going to go with another album. I was initially going to go with Snot Get Some just because I had get some keys or get some of these, whichever instrumental track is on Get Some on a playlist at work that I just recently put together, and like that song comes up all the time at work. So I'm like, I'm just gonna go with Snot, and he goes, "Good, don't do any Faith No More." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, fucking Faith No More." So. Of course, whenever I thought about that, of course thought about Woodpecker from Mars off of the debut album to feature Mike Patton, not Faith No More's debut album, but the first album to feature Mike Patton, Faith No More, The Real Thing. This is a pressing that I've never shown on the show. This is a Rocktober pressing on yellow vinyl. Um, this one doesn't get played. I would just play the standard, standard black pressing that I have. But there's an actual marbled Marbled yellow kind of looks like I think I have a pressing of Irony's a Dead Scene that kind of looks the same as this. Now that I think about it, but yeah, yeah, I owe it to my co-host to correct my mistake by not choosing Faith No More because dude, Woodpecker from Mars is such a good heavy fucking song. So good. Definitely one of my favorites from the album, and it does not feature the greatest vocalist in the world, Mike Patton, but still an amazing song, an amazing track on this album, and very, very, very true to form, Faith No More. So, what are you gonna do? Faith No More.
Cool. Yeah. I was just trying to direct you to do something other than Faith No More, but that's fine. Um, I my pick is something that I think I've talked about this album a couple times as well, but don't talk about this song often. Whoa, my computer just shifted there. Black Breath, Heavy Breathing, the title track, Heavy Breathing. This is a really cool instrumental. I remember seeing them live for the first time at Maryland Death Fest 2010, I think, and it was just fucking awesome. And then we just recently had Jesse from Ken Mode on our show, and he reminded me that the second time I saw Black Breath, which was in Richmond, Virginia, at an awesome little venue called Strange Matter, rest in peace, Ken Mode was on that show as well. But I remember them playing this song that night, and I was just uh, I guess I will say it. I was listening to a lot of Cypress Hill with the guys from Black Breath before they went on, and I was in the mood. I was great vibe, felt great when they played that this instrumental song, Heavy Breathing. I fucking was like, oh man, this song is great. It just reminds me how great and underrated this fucking band is. Um, I should talk about them more, but I don't. I only have three full lengths and an EP. This is the Clear Blue. It looks a little cloudy. Um, Shout out to these guys. Rest in peace to Eli. Uh, One of my favorite bands from Seattle. Very underrated band. They, I guess, maybe on this album and then on the last album, there's an instrumental track. But yeah, the singer Neil's got some fucking powerful vocals. I love this dude's vocals. Just for this particular song, it's a badass song with their buzzsaw guitar tone that I admire so much. Sounds a lot like Entombed or the same guitar tone on Agoraphobic Nosebleeds, Altered States of America. I love that sound. This band has, I think, perfected it. Shout out to Black Breath. I hope these guys watch our show. Please be on our show. That is our viewer's choice number 10. And I believe, Jeff, you have some new records.
I was bummed last night whenever Nick and I were discussing this episode, and he said, "Do you have anything new?" And I said, "No, not since the last time we did new releases." And I was like, "Oh." Like I was going to run to Columbia today and go to Hit Records and pick up a couple of albums, and lo and behold, an hour before we hit record on this episode, while I was taking a little nap, I had two records show up in the mail. Two records. So a couple, I think it was our last viewer's choice or the one before. I can't remember which one it was. My co-host over here introduced me to a band that I'd never heard of before. I'd never heard of this band. Floored by discovering this band and what they did and what their theme was and everything. And so I scoured around on the internet and I found a copy of Dr.Colossos,
The
The
Dank.
Dank. The
Nice.
Dank. I
Nice.
listened, dude, after you talked about them, this is all that I listened to for weeks.
How funny!
Literally,
How funny are their lyrics, dude?
right?
I
Dude,
mean, especially that you're watching it right now. You're probably like, "Oh man, I just watched that episode last night."
yeah, yeah. It just like, dude, it is so good.
Uh huh.
Dr. Colossus, The Dank. And we're
Yep.
not done yet. The second album I got from Dr. Colossus is their
Oh fuck
follow-up album.
yeah! Hell
Is,
yeah! I don't know this one.
is their follow-up album, and I know I'm going to screw this title up. I am a stupid moron with an ugly face and a big butt, and my butt smells, and I like to kiss my own butt. Dude, thank you so much for introducing me to this band
Yeah.
because I am
Fuck yeah.
just so entranced. But not only I'm not done yet. Not only did I find these two albums together, I found a copy of this that is a beautiful sky blue, limited to 100.
Nice.
Yeah, limited to 100. And dude, these like I got these two pressings from a site called Pop Culture, POPCULTCHA, Pop Culture, out of Australia. And dude, for
Yeah,
both of these albums together, shipped was like $60.
it's not bad.
What? Are you fucking serious? But literally, my Spotify. If anybody follows my personal Spotify, like I listen to nothing but Dr.Colossos for like at least a week or two after Nick showed me Dr.Colossos because I'm like, dude, I have to hear Simpsons related stuff and just that artwork, dude.
Yeah,
Look at that, dude. That is
it's
so awesome.
they said they approached a Rick Roper to do that, and he didn't want to do it because he was too loyal to sleep. So I can't remember the name of the gentleman who actually drew that, but he did a very good job.
Yes, he did.
And
Yes, he did.
yeah, obviously the title of that album is a parody of when Bart prank called Mo,
Hmm.
episode of the Treehouse of Horrors episode.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's great, dude. That band is so awesome. Like, if you ever see pictures of them like live, they come out and they're dressed up like stone cutters.
Stonecutters. Yeah,
They do have you have a couple 7 inches. They come with like rare like different covers, like red covers and like stuff like that. I haven't tried to indulge, but a lot of it's just it's because it's in Australia. It's hard to get your hands on that stuff. But
right.
I'm glad you got that stuff. That band is very funny and
I
interesting
am
and
I am stoked. I am so excited. And dude, like I said, they showed up today. Perfect timing, because this way I
yeah,
can
right.
actually contribute to the new acquirals or new acquisitions, new acquirals. What the fuck? New acquisitions, new
All
stuff.
right. I got quite a few here. I'm gonna try to rifle through this. Yesterday, I went to a local record store that I went to a couple weeks ago with um, J.R. Hayes, and I bought the second Rammstein album. I know I talked shit about this band a couple years ago. I'm eating it. This album was really cool. It had some fun songs. Other than Du Hast, um, there are some really neat songs. They were a very different and unique band. I remember the first time hearing them, I always thought like they sound like they're trying to rip off Metallica, and they're not. They're very unique. Their stage show is something different. It's all the fire and hula, but um, this is a pretty cool record. I'm not going to deny it. I remember listening to it a lot when I was a kid because a friend had it. And,
Absolutely.
yeah, but just I remember seeing other stuff by them years later and was just like, eh. Anywho, I also got Operation Mindcrime by Queensryche, which is one of the greatest concept records of all fucking time. There's a song in here called "Eyes of a Stranger" that has just some of the coolest riffage of all time. I mean, this whole album is great. I feel like that band Nevermore really took after this band. They're both from the Upper Northwest. Um, Sweet Sister Mary's on here. Operation Mindkind, Revolution Calling. I Don't Believe in Love. This is such a cool fucking record. Happy to own it. Uh, yeah, Queensryche. Good, great band from the '80s. They were a prog metal band. Unlike most bands, they set aside. They had a different sound. Uh, Yesterday, I alphabetized my buddy Chris's record collection, and he had a bunch of doubles of some bands that he just was like, you could take. Morbius, they are a local death metal band from Northern Virginia. Their brothers Matt and Andy in this band. They put together a really cool documentary a couple years ago called Underground Civilization. It's all about the DC underground metal scene that happened in the early '90s with bands like Deceased, Morbius, uh, Criminal Element, and Abominog. It's a really cool documentary. My buddy Chris, who I talk so much about, is in that documentary. But he gave me this album, which is called The Shades Below, and another album from them, which is called Alice in Christ. um, Morbius, really cool death metal band from the '90s. Here these guys are. Look, Matt's wearing an Abominog shirt. Matt right there. Uh,
Okay.
yeah, some cool free records I got from Chris for organizing his collection for him. Also, I'm growing my reggae collection, folks. Uh, some of you may have heard the song Chaka de Moose and Pliers, Murder She Wrote. It's just a 12-inch single. I think this song is catchy. I've listened to it a dozen times since I've gotten it. Uh, got that. Another reggae album that I've added to my collection. Not even an album. It's a 12-inch single by a fellow named Banton. Pato Banton. Secret Thunderbird drinker and don't sniff the coke. Uh, don't sniff coke is if you've heard the song "Sounds of Science" by Beastie Boys, they sample that song at the very end of the "Sounds of Science." It's a very funny song. Uh, I went and checked it out years later after because I was like, I wonder what the actual song sounds like. It's a funny fucking song. It's not great, but I laugh a lot at it. I tracked it down. I had to buy this out of the UK. You can see the price up there. Yeah, bam.
Mm-hmm.
Don't sniff the coke. I love that song. It's very funny. Like I said, if you're not familiar, go check out the "Sounds of Silence" by Beastie Boys. You'll hear it at the very end of that song. Uh, One thing that I tracked down, I think I've been talking about this for a while. I'm trying to get a lot of the early Meshuggah stuff, just complete the stuff that I do like. I stopped buying their newer stuff because it just doesn't appeal to me very much anymore. They're a great band, great musicians. I have nothing against them, but I did score a copy of Meshuggah, Contradictions Collapse. This is let's see, special one-time release only, featuring reimaged cover art, redesigned layout, remastered audio on bone white, limited to 500. Looks like it's like a mergey swirl of
Oh, very
something.
cool.
This album is so fucking good. Like, I think back in the day when I was really getting into Meshuggah, and you bought this, it came with the Nun EP as well. It was like a double CD or just CD with two full an album and an EP on it. I love this record. This was really cool. This was like early Meshuggah. It kind of sounded like Hetfield a little bit, his vocals, but this is good shit. This is a really cool album. Happy to have that. Last thing I'm going to talk about. This is a oh man, I didn't even pull this out. This is a band that I discovered years ago. I went to go see Spine Shank at a club called Jack's. It's no longer around, and they had just put out The Height of Callousness. It was the year 2000. Um, and the openers were Nonpoint and a band called Chimera. Chimera had just signed with Roadrunner, so maybe like a year later, this album had come out. At the time, they had a record called "This Present Darkness," which was just an EP. But yeah, I got this on vinyl. Let me see. Oh man, it is a blue vinyl. I don't know, Jeff, if you've ever were a fan of this band. I really like their first two albums. When they put out, I guess their second full length was called. Oh, I don't remember. It was white with red on it, and I wasn't that big of a fan. But anytime I went and saw them live, their singer Mark was really cool to me. He would always let me film them and put me on guest list sometimes if I didn't have a ticket. He trusted me to film them because I would never sell. I promised him, and I never did ever sell any of those footage that I filmed. I'd always give him a copy. And shout out to Mark Hunter. I don't know if he's still doing music. I think Chimera's reunited a couple times, but this was a cool band. This is a really cool fucking album. Uh, I don't. This may fall into new metal, but they were kind of like a metal core band. They had breakdowns. They had really cool riffs. But this was a Roadrunner band, so I feel like they did kind of fall into that new metal category. They were certainly touring with a lot of those bands, but I felt like that night that night I discovered them with Spine Shank and Nonpoint. I felt like they were the best band there that night. They blew everybody off the stage, and yeah, they toured a lot with Lamb of God. I remember, and Mark and Randy were always good friends and cool with each other. So yeah, that's my new stuff.
Cool. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Um, Very cool. Very cool.
All right. We're going to end on that cool note. Thank you, everybody, for watching this week. And we will see you all next week.
All right. See you guys.
Final thing,